Scripture to consider before the news. And he shall confirm the covenant with many for 1 week, and in the midst of the week he shall cause the sacrifice and the oblation to cease, and for the overspreading of abominations he shall make it desolate, even until the consummation, and that determined shall be poured upon the desolate. The he referenced is the prince that shall come, which will start the 70th week spoken of by Daniel the prophet. Now unto the news. Israel establishes diplomatic relations with Bhutan. On the heels of landmark normalization agreements with UAE, Bahrain, Sudan and Morocco, Israel established diplomatic ties with the Kingdom of Bhutan on Saturday, the Israeli Foreign Ministry announced in a statement. The agreement with the South Asian country comes on the heels of Israel's landmark normalization agreements with United Arab Emirates, Bahrain, Sudan and Morocco, all brokered by the United States. Bhutan, a majority Buddhist nation neighboring Israel ally India, is one of the more isolated countries in the world, often seen as keen to guard its cultural heritage from foreign influences. The agreement was unveiled days after Israel's Foreign Minister Gabi Ashkenazi spoke on the phone to his Bhutanese counterpart Tandi Dorji, agreed to cooperate in a range of areas including water management, agriculture and healthcare. I want to thank the Kingdom of Bhutan and hail the decision to establish full diplomatic relations with Israel, Ashkenazi said in a statement on Saturday. I invite my friend Foreign Minister Dorji to visit Israel to promote cooperation between the countries. I hope that in the next year we will welcome the King of Bhutan in Jerusalem for his premier official visit to the Jewish state. Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu took to Twitter on Saturday to state that he welcomed the establishment of relations between Israel and Bhutan, the result of another of Israel's peace treaties. We are in contact with other countries that want to be part of the trend and establish relations with us. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel and click the notification bell so you can get notified whenever new Bible prophecy news videos are uploaded. In other news, Saudi Arabia said to have played role in Israel-Morocco normalization agreement. Reports say Riyadh edging toward own deal with Israel and is pushing other Muslim countries to establish ties with Jerusalem. Indonesia, Oman tipped as likely candidates. Saudi Arabia played a role in the Trump-brokered normalization agreement between Israel and Morocco, diplomatic sources told Channel 12 on Friday. The report did not detail the Saudi involvement in the U.S. brokered deal, announced Thursday, and Riyadh has not officially reacted to the accord. However, Saudi Arabia plays a central role in the region, particularly among Sunni states, leading many analysts to speculate that none of the recent normalization deals would have been allowed without a green light from Saudi Arabia. In a sign of Saudi support, a prominent newspaper associated with the Saudi royal family put the Israel-Morocco deal on its front page, Channel 12 also noted. Unnamed Israeli diplomatic sources told the TV channel that it was very possible that Riyadh would also be prepared to normalize relations with Israel soon. This is despite Saudi Arabia reportedly being furious with Israel over the leak of a meeting that took place last month between Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman in the Saudi resort city of Neom. A report on Channel 13 TV, meanwhile, said that Saudi Arabia was working together with the Trump administration to get several other nations to sign normalization agreements with Israel, possibly before the Biden administration takes over next month. The unsourced report said that bin Salman was following the matter closely in an effort to prepare the ground for an eventual Israel-Saudi deal. The report speculated that Oman, which praised the Israel-Morocco deal, would be next. It also said that Indonesia, the world's most populous Muslim nation, was eager to have public ties with Israel. Without citing sources, Channel 13 said that while a full normalization agreement with Saudi Arabia is unlikely in the coming weeks, it might be possible to convince Riyadh to take smaller steps toward normalization. Following the UAE-Israel announcement in August, Saudi Arabia agreed to begin allowing Israeli flights to use its airspace. Separately Friday, Israeli reporter Tal Schneider, citing diplomatic sources, tweeted that Israel and the Himalayan Kingdom of Bhutan are expected to announce the forging of official diplomatic relations next week. Israel's lack of relations with the tiny Buddhist nation is not linked to the conflict with the Palestinians, but rather a result of Bhutan's isolationist policies. It currently has ties with just over 50 countries. On Thursday, Trump announced via Twitter that Morocco had decided to normalize ties with Israel after the U.S. agreed to recognize Rabat's sovereignty over the disputed territory of Western Sahara. Morocco becomes the fourth country to take such a step in 4 months, following the United Arab Emirates, Bahrain and Sudan. Following the announcement, Trump's son-in-law and senior advisor Jared Kushner said that an Israel-Saudi agreement was inevitable and the only question was when. Israel and Saudi Arabia coming together and having full normalization at this point is an inevitability, but the timeframe is something that has to be worked out, Kushner told reporters in a briefing following Trump's announcement of the fourth Arab-Israel agreement in 4 months. Kushner added that an Israeli-Saudi agreement would require strong U.S. leadership in the region. If you look at where we've come in last 6 months, the region has essentially gone from a solid to a liquid and it feels like there's a lot more fluidity, he said. Also following the Moroccan announcement, a senior Israeli official told Khan News that an additional unnamed country could announce a normalization deal with Israel within days. Meanwhile, an Israeli diplomatic source told Channel 12 that Jerusalem is in normalization talks with Muslim states in both Africa and Asia. Neither report could be independently verified. In September, Trump claimed anywhere between 5 and 9 other countries were on the path to peace with Israel. Numerous Israeli officials have also repeatedly said a number of countries are holding clandestine talks on the possible normalization. A Saudi agreement on normalization is seen as the big prize, given Riyadh's elevated status in the region. While the countries have taken steps towards stronger ties in the past several months alone, many analysts speculate that the kingdom is not yet ready for such a dramatic move, particularly while current King Salman is still alive. Saudi Arabia has insisted that any normalization between it and Israel can only happen alongside a lasting peace deal involving a two-state solution to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. The kingdom publicly continues to state its unwavering support for the Arab Peace Initiative, a 2002 Saudi-sponsored deal that offers Israel full ties with all Arab states in return for Palestinian statehood on territory Israel captured in 1967. At a conference in Bahrain last week, Prince Turki Al Faisal, the Saudi former intelligence chief who is said to be close to top leadership, gave voice to the strong support that the Palestinian cause still has in the region, with a fiery presentation. He described the Jewish state as a belligerent and apartheid-practicing occupier, and said that peace will remain elusive until the creation of a Palestinian state along 1967 lines. Israeli governments have arrested thousands of the inhabitants of the lands they are colonizing and incarcerated them in concentration camps under the flimsiest of security accusations, young and old, women and men who are rotting there without recourse or justice, Al Faisal said. Saudi Arabia has yet to comment on the Morocco-Israeli normalization announcement. Also, UN support drops for speaking of Temple Mount as solely a Muslim site. A small group of 10 countries, including Israel, opposed the text, but 147 nations remain in favor of the resolution. Support has dropped slightly at the United Nations for a General Assembly resolution that referenced the most holy site in Judaism, the Temple Mount, as solely the Muslim site Al-Haram al-Sharif. Liberia changed its vote from absent to no when the UNGA voted on the annual resolution in New York late on Thursday. This placed Liberia in a small group of 10 countries, including Israel, that opposed the text, which condemned Israeli practices against the Palestinians in East Jerusalem and the West Bank. The other 8 countries that opposed the measure, which passed 147 to 10, were Australia, Canada, Guatemala, Hungary, Marshall Islands, Nauru, Papua New Guinea and the United States. The resolution was one of 7 pro-Palestinian and anti-Israeli texts approved by the General Assembly last week, following the passage of an additional 6 pro-Palestinian and anti-Israeli resolutions earlier this month. Additional votes are expected to be held. The United States and Israel were the only 2 countries to consistently vote against all resolutions. Among the 7 that were approved Thursday was a resolution against Israeli sovereignty on the Golan Heights, which was approved 151-3 with 20 abstentions, representing a drop in support from last year when it was approved 157-2 with 20 abstentions. For the first time, Liberia joined Israel and the US in opposing the measure. If you liked this video, please give it a thumbs up. And stay tuned to Watchman Report for more Bible prophecy news.